Hey there, Together Learners. Eric back again. So you're making a website or a song or some other type of new media and you want to use some cool thing you found on the internet. It happens all the time. There's millions of people creating such cool things constantly. But sometimes it's okay to use that stuff that you find on the internet, and sometimes it's not. Or more importantly, sometimes you should or you shouldn't copy things from the internet. And there's different rules around them. And that's what this video is all about. We're going to tell you all the things that you should and shouldn't be doing with things copied from the internet. Coming right up. All right. So maybe you've heard some of these terms before, like copyright or fair use. We're going to go through these main categories in this video so you can get a basic understanding about what it means to copy things from the internet and put them into your creative works digitally or on a website or a song or whatever that might be. All right, so let's go through some of these categories and maybe we'll dive deeper into them in later videos as well. All right, here we go. So when you copy off the internet, you might be looking at 4 different types of scenarios, and you're going to use this media differently depending on what category they fall in. And that is copyright, public domain, fair use, and Creative Commons. Now these are all probably looked into much deeper on our course New Media Fundamentals and other courses at togetherlearning.com under our digital literacy series of courses. All right, so let's look at the first one, which is probably the most common on the internet, which is copyright. Copyright means the right that a person who created that thing is. It could be some words, could be a poem, could be some music. Anything that's been displayed, probably on a website is where you're seeing it most likely. Somebody has taken the time and effort to create that, and they have rights to it. That is their right, their copyright. And whether they want to exercise it or not, if they do not say anything, in most cases, copyright is implied, meaning that when you don't know, most cases, that whoever made it, whoever took that picture, whoever recorded that music, whoever wrote those words has certain rights to them, and that is copyright. So if you are a creator and you want to make sure people know that you want to hold on to the right to reuse or copy this material, you're going to somewhere on your website or connected to your art write the words copyright and the date associated with it. And you can see here, this is the symbol with the C on it that is connected to this idea, this concept of copyright. So if you see this or the word copyright and then who has copywritten it, you want to do these behaviors when seeking to reuse it, right? First, you'll need to get explicit permission to use it. So you want to contact that person that made that thing and say, hey, I'm making this. Can I use your 9090? So you're something. And you have to follow their instructions. And many times, if you want to avoid any ramifications or trouble in the future, you might want to even get it in writing. So this is the most complicated. There's also something called fair use, which is one of the other 4 categories, which allows you to use copyrighted material. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Next, public domain, right? Copyright does not protect everything forever. And as a society, as communities, we don't want someone to own certain things, right? Certain things like the sky, the stars, certain pieces of work that have been with us forever and ever. So a lot of times copyright has a time limit to it. So over a certain amount of years, this is different for different types of media in different countries around the world, but after 10, 15, 20 years, the person who created that no longer has the same copyright as they did in the first place. It becomes automatically public domain. There's other things that automatically become public domain as well. If you work for the government and you create something, that might automatically be public domain, right? There are different ways that this comes about, and basically what it means is you are able to use it freely. Public domain, you could use it freely. You, in the right circumstances, could even take it, and this is actually starting to be a bigger problem because people are actually collecting public domain materials and making subscription services and trying to sell them on the internet. So be careful. Even though you go out and you find this cool picture on this one website and you want to use it on your website or whatever, it could be that that is also public domain, and you might be able to find it free somewhere else and use it freely because it is public domain. So sometimes it's good to see that even though something is found on a paid website, to double check to see if it is public domain or not, and to see if you can use it in your creative works. And the C with the line through it is a clear symbol, if you see that somewhere, that this is freely usable and in the public domain. Next, fair use. Okay, so as an educator, as a news reporter, as a journalist, we have to use copyrighted material a lot, and we want to be able to criticize something. We want to be able to tell the news about certain things. We want to be able to educate people about the things around the world or new pieces of art, material, whatever that might be. And so we have come upon this kind of fair use idea to allow us to talk about copyrighted material and be protected under the law. And this is called fair use. So under the right conditions, you can take somebody's copyrighted material, or usually just small parts of it, and use it. And there's a lot of different nuances to be able to qualify as fair use. And I'm going to be making a separate video about this idea of fair use. But for now, I'll tell you, it's around 4 or 5 different concepts which you can need to think about if you're going to be trying to use copyrighted material for various things. First, why are you using it? If you're taking a song to package it in a different way and resell it, it's probably not so good. But if you're an educator like me and using it in small parts to teach somebody about a topic, a concept, whatever, that usually is a little bit better for fair use, for educational purposes, for news and community education purposes, right? Next, what type of media is it? Is it an article from a newspaper? Is it a YouTube video? Is it a song that you heard on the radio? All of those have different case uses and different ways that usually fair use is applied to them. So it might be different depending on where you get it or where you hear it or where you want to use it from. The nature of which you use it, the amount, so if you want to show it to a lot of people or just a few people, or the amount of which you use. You can't copy the whole book of something and think that you're using fair use. Maybe you want to, as an educator, talk about a specific chapter, then you can quote certain lines from it, and therefore you can call fair use. And the effect it has is also come into consideration when using fair use as well. If you take something and you only change it slightly, or you make a new version and the new version hurts or makes it difficult for that original copyright holder to do something or to share it or whatever, that's difficult to prove or to find examples of, but this could be taken into consideration as well. So fair use is not easily explained. There's a lot of different nuances with it, but just know there are conditions from which you can take copyrighted material and use them in your works, as long as you try your best to satisfy the terms and conditions of this idea of fair use in our legal system and societies. Last, this is probably the most useful to creative people all over the world. We have come upon a Creative Commons, a series of licenses that are in between public domain and copyright. If you are a creator, this is the best way to be able to put a legal document, a set of rules onto your media, your art, your photography, your website, and let people know in very clear terms what they can do with it. So you can go to Creative Commons and seek out what things you want to do. For example, attribution, meaning you let people share it, but they have to tell people where they got it from. Mainly, they have to display your name and your website or something along with it. Or no commercial, like you can share it, but as soon as you start selling, you have to contact me and let me know because I might want a piece of your commercial enterprise around using my art, my digital media, etc. Right? And remixing and reusing, or other things that are related to these different elements of Creative Commons licenses that you can apply to your media. And as a person wanting to use media on the internet, you can easily use and find these connected to lots of art, and you can immediately understand, if you know what these common Creative Commons and license are, what you can and cannot do with it. It makes it clear what you can and cannot do with it in many, many cases. And so you don't have to reach out for permission for normal copyrighted materials or try to be satisfied the fair use idea or concept as well. If you want to just take a quick look at what you can do with this on the internet, let's say I want to do a quick search. I searched here for stars. I'll blow this up slightly so you can see. Right? And I'm going to do an image search for stars. Now, Google will show you all images with a tag or some metadata that says stars in it, or even might show you some star pictures in which some AI algorithm has identified stars in it. But that doesn't mean that these images are free to use. Some of them are copyright, some of them are Creative Commons, some of them are public domain. But Google search, especially image search, will allow you to filter out which ones are of each order. And sometimes it's pretty good at it, but sometimes you need to double check, to be honest. So you go to Tools, and then to Usage Rights, and then now you can say Creative Commons licenses or commercial and other licenses. So let's go to Creative Commons licenses, and now it's going to filter out the images from which that have been tagged, or Google knows that these are either free to use in the public domain or have specific Creative Commons licenses attached to them. So right now I can see already commons.wiki.org. Wikipedia is an open source piece of knowledge. You can copy from Wikipedia and add it to your works pretty freely. There are very few restrictions, but not so many. So you can use Wikipedia in your websites and things like that. So the artwork and pictures in Wikipedia are usually close to public domain. They're in the Creative Commons sphere as well. So you can see a bunch of stuff here and Flickr, maybe some other images of stars. And then I'm just going to go change this to commercial and other licenses. And you can see usually very different set of pictures show up. So if you were looking for an icon, usually icons, the people are trying to commercialize those. So you can usually see links to stock photography and other more high quality use. And you might need to either pay or get permission to use those in your creative works. All right, we have just talked about the 4 main areas, the main concepts for copying things on the internet. This is part of the New Media Fundamentals course on togetherlearning.com, and it's also part of a bigger digital literacy course or set of courses. So if you want to keep learning more about creating new media, understanding how to copy and use these things, please check us out at togetherlearning.com. Copying from the internet, I'm Eric. I'm signing out for now. Please join us or check us out online if you want to keep learning together. Bye-bye now.